Naughty Dog's next project is structured like a show, Death Stranding 2 and a Sony FPS rumored release windows, Sony doesn't view Xbox Game Pass as competition, 4 Sony exclusives may not ever appear on Xbox, all that and more in today's PlayStation news. Let's get into them. Let's start with a trio of Naughty Dog and Last of Us news. Naughty Dog's next project is structured like a TV show. Naughty Dog is currently working on The Last of Us factions and they have multiple projects going on, more than they have ever had at the same time, according to Neil Druckmann, who also confirmed he's working on a new project at this year's Summer Game Fest. There are rumors about it being a new IP or The Last of Us Part 3, given that Druckmann previously hinted the sequel story had an outline. In a recent interview with NewYorker.com, Druckmann spoke about the upcoming TV series and reflected on his approach to making games and hinting at what we could see in their upcoming project. He revealed that his next project was structured more like a TV show than anything Naughty Dog had made, and as a result Druckmann has taken an unusual approach in which he wasn't writing the script alone or with a partner, instead assembling a writer's room. Push Square notes the New Yorker interview doesn't indicate Naughty Dog's next game will be episodic, instead it's more of a shift in influence for Druckmann as a creator after working alongside the HBO show crew in The Last of Us TV series. And in an update to this story, Neil Druckmann himself confirmed it's all about making games in an even more collaborative manner. What do you think Neil Druckmann's next project is about? Place your bets in the comment section. Continuing with our trio of stories, The Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut speculation. According to YouTuber Dom the Bomb, the original trailer for the PS5 Enhanced Performance patch for The Last of Us Part 2 has been quietly removed from the PlayStation YouTube channel. This has been taken as further hints of the existence of a Last of Us Part 2 PS5 version which could be a director's cut. It's not the first rumor of a Part 2 director's cut, as Insider Gaming's Tom Henderson also listed the project as part of early rumors about future Last of Us games in January this year. He said The Last of Us Remake would be released during the latter half of 2022, and besides that, The Last of Us Multiplayer and The Last of Us Part 2 Director's Cut were coming as well. One of those projects is already out, and the other was confirmed at Summer Game Fest, which means a Part 2 re-release is very likely, also considering it's part of Sony's strategy since we got newer versions for Ghost of Tsushima and Death Stranding. Would you play through an updated version of The Last of Us Part 2? Which features would you like to be added? Share your opinion in the comments. One more Last of Us story, and it has to do with the TV series. The Last of Us TV show cuts violence but adds a new infected. Neil Druckmann has talked more about what we can expect for The Last of Us TV show, and according to an interview with SFX magazine, they cut back on the violence. Druckmann compares the approach to adding violence into a game in contrast with a passive medium such as TV, indicating, "We need a certain amount of action or violence that we could use for mechanics so you could connect with Joel and get into a flow state. Then you would really feel like you are connected with this on-screen avatar and you are seeing the world through his eyes." In comparison, TV series co-creator Craig Mazin and HBO asked very early on to take out all the violence except for the very essential, which Druckmann says allowed the violence to have even more impact than in the game, because when you hold on showing the threat and you are seeing people's reaction to a threat, that makes it scarier. And when we do reveal the infected and the clickers, you get to see what broke down humanity and why everyone is so scared. So it's not being violent just for the sake of it, but instead using violence to deliver impactful moments. Naughty Dog Central also points out to another interview with Craig Mazin where he mentions the show's team consulted with Naughty Dog's concept artist to develop an infected individual unlike those seen in the game. He also touched on the humanizing aspects of the infected's design, such as their clothes or darkened hair due to the years they spent underground. The Last of Us HBO premieres this January 15 with an 85-minute long episode. What are your current hype levels for the series? Tell us in the comments below. Death Stranding 2 and a Sony FPS rumored release windows. The latest rumor on upcoming PlayStation exclusives indicates that Death Stranding 2 and an untitled Sony FPS are being aimed to be released in 2024. This comes from Frank Aliberti, who has worked on character design at Sony's Visual Arts studio. Aliberti posted both games on ArtStation as work he's done in the past. We saw Death Stranding 2 reveal trailer at the Game Awards, and with no release window given, it's likely the title is more than 12 months away. As for the upcoming first-person shooter, it seems it could be what Fireworks Studios is working on as part of the SIE partnership inked in 2021, or it could be from Deviation Games, the studio formed by ex-Call of Duty devs, also in partnership with SIE. Since the original report of this story from website PC Game About, Liberty has changed the listing, removing Death Stranding 2 but listing an upcoming third-person co-op shooter for 2023. No idea what this project could be, maybe it's related to them supporting Naughty Dog for the Last of Us factions or something else entirely. Also consider Sony Visual Arts Studio supports even third parties such as with the Callisto Protocol. What do you think about these rumors? Sound off in the comments. Sony doesn't view Xbox Game Pass as competition. Sony has been the most interested party in stopping the Microsoft Activision deal from happening, and one of their complaints is the idea of Call of Duty being on Game Pass, but apparently the Japanese company doesn't see the service as competition. An anonymous source talked with Insider Gaming about a Q&A meeting that PlayStation President Jim Ryan held this month about market competition. Regarding Xbox Game Pass, Jim Ryan said that, "When we consider Game Pass, it seems to be getting lower numbers. When we consider Game Pass, we have sold more PS5s in 2 years than they have gathered subscribers, and they have been doing that for 6 to 7 years. He continued explaining, "We're just shy of 50 million subscribers and they are in the low 20s, but there's more work to do to grow that number." Again, this is contradicting their position among regulators around the world, where they have expressed the deal is bad for the gaming industry and not agreeing to Microsoft's 10-year deal for Call of Duty that even included the option to add the games on PlayStation Plus. As mostly a PlayStation gamer myself, I like the idea of Xbox Game Pass given I have both consoles. It has allowed me to keep buying PlayStation games while not missing out on cool stuff from Microsoft I may be interested in for a small fee. What are your thoughts about Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation? Do you think they work their own separate ways, or is the business of one a threat to the other? Voice your opinion in the comments. Microsoft and Activision respond to the FTC. Microsoft and Activision didn't take kindly the FTC's decision to sue in an attempt to block their merger, but they had not given a proper response until now. Both companies argued that joining would be a benefit for the gaming industry, making Activision games available to more platforms. Microsoft said, "The acquisition of a single game by the third-place console manufacturer cannot upend a highly competitive industry. That is particularly so when the manufacturer has made clear it will not withhold the game." The statement continues, "The fact that Xbox's dominant competitor has thus far refused to accept Xbox's proposal does not justify blocking a transaction that will benefit consumers. Giving consumers high-quality content in more ways and at lower prices is what the antitrust laws are supposed to promote, not prevent." In regard to Bethesda titles being exclusive, Microsoft pointed out those games are played alone or in small groups, which is the reason for their exclusivity, and also point out they never misled the European Commission about it, which even the regulator acknowledged. Meanwhile, on the Activision side, they accused the FTC of changing antitrust laws. The FTC ignores the significant benefits of the transaction in favor of a warped attempt to ignore the facts and rewrite antitrust law and settle precedent to protect Xbox's competitors from hypothetical harm that has no basis in marketplace realities. They further indicated Activision content being added to subscription services and cloud gaming gives gamers more options on how to engage with the content. Microsoft President Brad Smith also gave a separate comment where he said they have confidence in their case, but are also committed to protecting competition, consumers, and workers in the tech sector. As we have learned from our lawsuits in the past, the door never closes on the opportunity to find an agreement that can benefit everyone. Do you think Microsoft and Activision are right here? Do you think the deal benefits gamers? Do you think the companies would comply with keeping games on other platforms? Share your opinion in the comments. 4 Sony exclusives may not ever appear on Xbox. Microsoft and Activision not only replied to the FTC but had already responded similarly to the UK CMA, in which they talked about exclusivity deals in the industry. They said exclusivity strategies are not uncommon in the games industry, and other market participants have access to their own content before moving into listing games from both Sony and Nintendo. In addition to having outright exclusive content, Sony has also entered into agreements with third-party publishers which require the exclusion of Xbox from the set of platforms these publishers can distribute their games on. Some prominent examples of these agreements include Final Fantasy VII Remake from Square Enix, Bloodborne from From Software, the upcoming Final Fantasy XVI from Square Enix, and the recently announced Silent Hill 2 Remaster from Bloober Team. Yeah, that's what exclusive means, and obviously Microsoft is playing defense while talking about the strategies all companies have done throughout their history, including themselves. Exclusives are bad for developers and consumers but are a necessary evil to drive users toward one platform or another. Microsoft is apparently demonizing exclusives just because they have somewhat stopped working that way, while Sony has doubled down in the most recent years, and to prove the point that the PlayStation brand can survive despite Activision being acquired. Windows Central, which is the source of this news, also pointed out these games being locked forever to Sony's consoles, which I don't think is the case. Even if it takes a while, some exclusives like Kingdom Hearts, Yakuza, and Final Fantasy games have made their way to Xbox. Nothing is exclusive forever unless a company owns the IP. And out of those listed by Microsoft, Sony does own the Bloodborne IP, which is silly to point out. What do you think about exclusive games? Do you think there is a permanent exclusive? Share with us in the comments. A round of quickfire game news. Christopher Judge's acceptance speech for picking up Best Performance at this year's The Game Awards was awkward but kind-hearted, and it has set a new world record. According to The Game Awards Twitter, Judge's speech was 7 minutes and 59 seconds, surpassing actress Greer Grayson's 5 minutes and 30 seconds speech at the 1942 Oscars. The voice of Kratos took it all in good fun. During a recent Final Fantasy XVI livestream, producer Naoki Yoshida talked about the revenge trailer we saw at the Game Awards and said it was rendered entirely in real time with no loading, and it's become a game that will have you looking at the power of the PS5. Sabotage Studio released a new video with composer Yasunori Mitsuda talking about the upcoming RPG Sea of Stars. Mitsuda says the approach to the game is to echo the style of the Super Nintendo era in terms of style, music, and gameplay. The game is then confirmed for a summer 2023 release on PS4 and PS5. And those are the PlayStation stories for today. What are your thoughts on them? Share them in the comments below, let me know your feedback by liking or disliking this video, check out other videos you may enjoy while you're here, and consider subscribing for more on PlayStation. Thank you so much for watching, my name is Joseph, this is Hype for Games, and let's get hype!